In this video, we're going to be fixing the heater blowers on this 1975 Mercedes 280 SL. They've never worked since we've owned the car, and today we're going to sort that issue out. The heater blower motors are a common problem with these R107s. Either there's a problem with the motor itself, now we've replaced the motor and all the seals, so we know that's not the issue, or what's more likely is that there's a problem with the heater blower motor resistor, which we'll be swapping out in this video, and sometimes there's a problem with the switch itself, which lives behind here. So we'll be taking this out and actually examining the switch. The heater blower motor resistor lives under this panel here. Now this here is the heater blower motor, and we've already done a detailed video on how that works, how to repair the studs, etc. But today we're interested in the heater blower motor resistor, which is this unit here, and it's held in by two screws, one here and one here. And to get to those screws, you're going to have to unplug this. In many R107s that I've looked at, these heater blower resistors will be what's technically called knackered. And the symptoms of a faulty resistor will be that your blowers may come on unexpectedly at any time, or you may have set your blowers to the first setting and suddenly they get faster or slower, or some of the settings won't work together. And in the worst case scenario, you turn your heater blower on and nothing happens at all. What you may find when you try and take your heater blower motor resistor out is that these screws here are rusted in solid. And my advice would be, if your screws are not yet rusted, if you manage to get these screws out, to replace them with stainless steel screws. If you're going to replace those screws, you're going to need M4 times 10 mil. These are stainless steel screws, and it might also be an idea to get some spring washers. These are low profile wave washers as well, just M4 ones. You can also, from this company here, Accu, get special screws. These are M4 10 mil screws, but they have fluorosilicon washers on them, because what you will see is that this is indeed a rust area, and those washers, what they'll do is they will seal this car here and stop moisture getting into this area. So if you are ever drilling holes anywhere in the chassis of your car, it's an idea to use screws with little washers like that on, just to stop moisture getting inside the car. What invariably happens is people try and force these screws out, or these screws become welded to the little brass fittings on the resistor, and then you end up cracking the Bakelite. And these resistors here, if you don't know it, are no longer available and are like hen's teeth. They're extremely rare, and to get a second-hand one in good condition, you'll be very lucky indeed. You can buy a remanufactured version of this resistor with sort of upgraded electronic components in it, but they're almost £300. So it's as well to actually have a look at your heater blower motor resistor, make sure it's in good shape, and actually replace these screws with stainless steel. This is the heater blower resistor that came with the car. You can see it's sprayed with red paint. It's also missing the cage that should protect those resistors, but you can see the corner is cracked here, big piece of Bakelite missing here and here, where basically somebody's tried to take that out and crack the Bakelite. Now when I came to take the one out of the parts car, I also did exactly the same thing. In fact, it was already cracked. But to get it out, what you should do is just grind the top of the head of the screw off, and then you can come back and drill that out. Now, unfortunately, our parts car heater blower resistor was also knackered, but luckily we have been able to source this resistor here, which is in pristine condition. I'm just going to take it home, sand off a little bit of this rust. What basically happens as these resistors get warm, the moisture in the air condenses on these warm bits here, and they go a little bit rusty, so we'll just address that. And these heater blower resistors should have a metal cage like this covering the resistors so that there's no chance of them getting damaged. If you are going to try and source one of these heater blower resistors, make sure it has the right fittings on the end. These will interface directly with the motors. The motors are freely available from Euro parts. They're not particularly expensive. What some people do is they just chop the wires and then join them like this, which is not ideal at all. Another thing worth mentioning is that these heater blower resistors did change over the years. So for example, a 560 SL will have a different number of pins on the plug. So if you are trying to source a heater blower resistor for your car, make sure you actually get one with the right number of pins on and a plug that actually fits your car. So let's run through a few common scenarios of what might be going on with your heater blower motors and how you can diagnose what the problem is. Scenario number one, let's just imagine you turn your heater blowers on in the car and absolutely nothing happens. If you want to test whether the problem is a seized motor, then all you need to do is unplug this here and know that these pins are all numbered. If you look closely on there, know that pin 3 is the earth and pin 6 is the live. So let's see if we can just zoom in and you'll be able to see the pins. You can see that they are numbered. So you could, in actual fact, just hold a 9-volt battery across those two pins there, and the motor will either turn or it won't turn. If it doesn't turn, you need a new motor. Obviously, you could use the car battery as well to test that. Just run a negative wire to pin 3 and a positive wire to pin 6. Just touch it on there. Does the motor turn or doesn't it? That'll tell you whether your motor's working. If your motor is working and yet when you turn this switch nothing happens, the next thing to look at is whether or not this switch here is actually working. And to access this switch, you need to get this panel out. And most people end up making a right mess of that and breaking all the fittings. So to get this panel out, you need to very carefully pry out the two plastic sliders either side, and you will see there are a couple of screws here, and you will undo those screws and this panel will just bend forward. It's just clipped in here and here. Unfortunately, this is a little bit cracked, but in a forthcoming video, we will actually be putting a vintage stereo in here that's been adapted to work with Bluetooth. So that'll be interesting to see how that works. This here is the switch from one of our parts cars, and if you turn it over, the way this switch works is these pins are also numbered here. This is numbered pin 5, and pin 5 has a 12-volt positive feed going to it. And as you turn the switch, that 12 volts is sent to these pins here. You can find out which pins do what simply by setting your voltmeter to resistance and then putting one terminal on here, setting the switch to position number 1, and you'll see which one of these pins has continuity. What I can tell you is pin number 7, this one here, is switch setting number 1. Then up here, pin number 1 is switch setting number 2. This is switch setting number 3, and up here, pin number 3 is switch setting number 4. To get the switch off in its entirety, you need to drill out these rivets here, and then you'd need to replace them with screws. And to get the switch apart, you'd need to drill out these little rivets here. In the first instance, what you would do is try spraying contact cleaner in there and just cleaning the contacts. By far the most common problem with the heater blower motors is that they're on full all the time, or they come on and off spontaneously, and that the culprit of that is almost certainly the resistor itself. On this manky resistor here that came with the car, you can see that this little strip here is making permanent contact with that pin there, and it shouldn't be. There should be a bimetallic strip attached to the top of that, which when that bimetallic strip heats up, it should then make contact with this, and the fan blowers should be on full, so as supposedly to cool down the resistors and stop them all overheating. So that's kind of a safety mechanism that's built into this resistor here, but it often goes wrong. So on our pristine heater blower resistor, you can see there's a gap between those two terminals there, and I'll just show you what happens if you hook a little light bulb up and then put a hairdryer on that. You'll see that bimetallic strip bending, contact will be made, and in theory the light bulb should light up. There you go. Now if your light isn't coming on, or there's dirt on the contacts, as was the case with ours, you just need to bend a bit of emery paper double and rub it between those two contacts. So with the ignition on, pin 8, which is this top pin here, has 12 volts going to it, and when the this bimetallic strip heats up for whatever reason, that 12 volts goes straight to the motor and causes it to run at full speed. On the plug, pin 8 corresponds to this socket here, so you would expect when you take this plug to pieces with the ignition on that there would be a constant 12 volt source to that, and as previously mentioned several times, that 12 volt does not touch any of these other contacts until that bimetallic strip is heated up, and then all of the resistors effectively bypass and 12 volts goes straight to the motor. The last thing I would say on this heater blower resistor before we clean it and fit it back to the car is that the resistors are actually all marked. That's a 1 ohm resistor, a 0.7 ohm resistor on the other side. You've got a 0.7 and a 0.5 here. Now obviously they are joined in series, so when your fan position is on fan speed number 1, i.e. the slowest speed, then all of these resistors will be in the circuit, and similarly when your fan speed is on the highest speed, then effectively none of them will be in the circuit and you'll have the full 12 volts going to the motor. So if one of these contacts was broken here, then that would be another reason why your heater blower fan motors was not working properly. The heater blowers only work with the switch key on position 1, and you'll see with the new resistor in, I don't know if you can hear that on camera, the fans are blowing, and as we go up the next level they're blowing a little bit more, a little bit more, and a little bit more. Now that we've ascertained that everything's working, we've just sanded off the rust there. We'll go over that with rust encapsulator, and then we'll go over that with some red paint. We've cleaned the new resistor with a little Dremel tool, get rid of any rust, and we'll go over the cage there with some Rust-Oleum gold paint just to stop that rusting in the future. Just gone over that cage with a few light coats of Rust-Oleum gold. It goes on really nicely and gives a beautiful finish. Well, our paint is dry, it's just a matter of taking out the old wires and putting the new ones in. The old wires are held on with this clip here that you just need to pry up, and then these are just pull and push fittings, hopefully. The resistor is fitted first and then the black cover fits over it, but it is quite tricky to wiggle the wires through there. This is how they are routed. Then it's just a matter of putting on all the clips, which are still actually available from Mercedes, as pointed out in the previous video that we did on the heater blower motor. Once again, my advice would be to use stainless steel fittings. These need a spring washer on first. If you can do this without dropping any nuts, you'll be a better man than me. It's really difficult to thread the washers and nuts onto those lower studs, so what I do is just have a piece of wire resting on the stud and then put the washer over the wire and it will slip straight on. Same with the nut. Everything back together, we just need to put some contact adhesive on here now to stick that down, and we can put the cover back on, and that's job done. These are the little clumps that we use to do the soft top roof, and they're really coming in handy for other things as well, so we're just going to leave that for an hour or so and that should be it done. I'm going to finish here. Just a word of advice: if you are ever thinking of buying an R107, one of the things to check is that the heater blowers work, because you might not be aware when you look at one of these little old 107s that to replace that heater blower resistor is going to cost you close to £350.